In episode 5, Cassie and Ben ended up falling asleep in his office, and Cassie's the first one to wake up. She's horrified at what she did, but she notices her file sitting on Ben's desk, so she starts snapping photos of everything in it so she can look back on it later. She tries to covertly sneak out of there, and she's almost at the door until she's caught by Dot. She tries to cover by telling Dot that she was supposed to do a debrief with Benjamin, and she was just in the neighborhood, so she tried to give it to him, but he's not in his office. And Dot maybe buys it, but switched the conversation to what happened in Berlin, saying that maybe it would benefit Cassie if she just saw a counselor, because she just seems on edge. Cassie reassures her that she's fine, and Dot tells her, well, if you need to talk to somebody, you have my number. That's what it's for. As Cassie makes her way into the elevator, she notices that this conversation is being watched by Benjamin, who tries to sneak out of eyesight before Dot sees him, but it's too late. Dot saw him. When Cassie gets back to her car, she doesn't quite know what to do, so she ends up calling Shane. She sounds crazy because she's talking at a frenetic pace, but she explains to Shane that she didn't know who else to call, but she's pretty convinced that somebody has stolen her identity. She brings up the 2 murders in Echo Park and how they were CIA agents, and that's something that Shane didn't know. He also warns her that she probably shouldn't be saying all this, but Cassie doesn't stop. She says that she has proof that the murders are connected to Berlin because of these slides on a Viewmaster toy. And when she says that perks Shane's ears up. It's as if Shane knows something. He doesn't tell Cassie anything other than to lay low before training that day because they have training for Imperial Atlantic that they need to do in order to stay flight attendants. Cassie completely forgot about it because she's too concerned with the fact that somebody might be framing her from inside the CIA. Shane then hangs up the phone on her, and Cassie heads home before training, where she finds Annie and Max. She explains everything that she did, including sleeping with Benjamin, and starts printing out the photos that she took from Benjamin's office. While Annie wants to slap her on the wrist for sleeping with Benjamin and cheating on Marco, Max brings up the point that they wouldn't have any of this new information had she not done it, so good on you. Through all the stress, Cassie says, I want a drink. It's the reality of my situation. It's the reality of my life now. I'm always going to want a drink. And one of the reasons why was one of the things in her file. It's her psych evaluation. It says that Cassie has narcissistic delusions, borderline sociopathic tendencies, needs constant praise, although that one she admits is probably true. But the rest of it really isn't Cassie. It's painting the picture of Cassie, though, as a possible killer, and that's what concerns her. The rest of the items in the folder were grainy stills that sure as hell look like Cassie, but Cassie, Max, and Annie know it's of the double. The most incriminating piece of evidence, though, is her missing glove from Berlin that is at the crime scene from Echo Park. That one's pretty damning. The only hope that she has is the evidence that she could find on the Viewmaster. So she asks Annie and Max for it, but they let her know that the couple that broke in took it. Not exactly the news that Cassie wanted, so she heads off to training, but when she opens the door, there's Marco, standing there. He asks Cassie, why have you not been returning my calls? And she starts telling him that she's got a work thing she has to get to, if they could talk about it later, but this has been a trend with her, this work thing. Marco says there's clearly something going on here. Cassie puts the blame all on herself, saying that it's her at the moment, it's nothing to do with him, all the while trying to get out of the conversation, but Marco keeps persisting. And she gets so stressed out by the badgering that she blurts out, I slept with somebody else. Cassie then gets a text message from Brenda asking her to call her, but it couldn't come at a worse time because Marco demands some answers. And Cassie gives him possibly the worst answer she could. I guess I just forgot about you. Marco can deal with the cheating. He can't deal with the fact that she, quote, forgot about him. So he tells her, my daughter would have absolutely loved you, and then walks off. Cassie gets to training, but the only person she really wants to talk to is Shane. She wants to find out if Shane got any new information. And through a friend at the agency, he was able to get security stills from a bunch of different places that clearly have the double who is posing as Cassie. Without the Viewmaster, though, there's really no context. Cassie has to explain that she doesn't have it and she's currently trying to get it back. She then shows Shane her psych evaluation, telling him that I didn't say any of these answers, but he's more concerned with the fact that she stole a federal document, and she reveals to him that she got it because she slept with Benjamin. After letting her know how stupid of a move that was, he tells her that there's very few people that could have doctored a psych evaluation. They have to stop the conversation, though, because Jada comes over. She's in charge of the training, and she's going to kick it off. But right before they start training, Cassie gets a phone call from Brenda. She tells Cassie that Hildegard, a.k.a. Megan, left. But it's not like Cassie can really dive into that because she currently has to go through training. And as Cassie is going through training, Megan has made it all the way back to Long Island. She went to the strip club looking for her lockbox. She doesn't find it. Jerry, the girl that Megan left it with, is now running the club, and she was renting out that room to a deadbeat who she had to kick out, and when she kicked out the deadbeat took everything in it with her, including that lockbox. The only saving grace for Megan is Jerry's pretty convinced she knows how to get it back. They head to the deadbeat's trailer, asking her for the lockbox back, but the deadbeat pulls the "make me" card. When the deadbeat insults Jerry, Megan sticks up for her, yelling at her, but the whole time she's really just distracting her as she puts some of the mushrooms in the woman's drink. She figures after about a half hour, this woman will be knocked out and they can just go into her place and grab the lockbox themselves. It works. Later that night, they're able to sneak into the woman's house and get the lockbox. When Megan gets back to the club, she ends up buying Jerry's car off of her, checking to make sure everything's in the lockbox, and then taking off. But back in California, Annie and Max had nothing to do while Cassie was in training, so they decided, we got to get that Viewmaster back for her. Through talking it out, they realized their best option to get the Viewmaster back is reverse tracing the bugs that Max found all over Cassie's apartment. That's how the Diazes knew everything about them. As Max starts going to work, Annie starts talking about what happened the other day and what she said, but she gets cut off because it doesn't take Max long for him to get into the Diaz's laptop. He realizes, though, that they had hacked into his laptop the previous day and took all of his information. All the shady stuff that he did, the Diazes now know about it. So the only option they have is to go find the Diazes, get the Viewmaster, and get the laptop. They can't let the Diazes have Max's information. Max and Annie head on over to where the Diazes are located, and Max is able to find out more information on them and how dangerous they truly are. I mean, these two are serious bounty hunters we're talking here. They then notice that the Diazes are home, and as the Diazes are about to have some adult fun, Max sneaks in, stealing the laptop, the Viewmaster, but then circling back for something else, Annie's ring. He's unable to find it, and Annie convinces him to get the hell out of there before he gets caught. When they get back to the car, Annie starts reaming him out for trying to go back to the ring because he could have gotten himself killed, but he explains that he had to go back for that ring because he spent months trying to pick the correct ring, and when she opened it up, he realized that he got it right. And even though she made it super clear that she doesn't care about the ring, he does. That's a little bit of food for thought for Annie. They end up calling the cops on Gabrielle and Esteban, saying there's a domestic disturbance, and that allows them to get out of there. At this point, Cassie is out of training, but by choice. She gets so stressed out by her coworkers, mainly Carol, that she gets up and leaves. She doesn't really have anywhere to go, so she ends up heading to Grace's. Talking to Grace does make Cassie feel better, especially when Grace tells her that she likes her and she doesn't like many people. Grace, though, gets a phone call and tells Cassie, I gotta leave, but I'm gonna finish this martini. There is another one, though, in the shaker if you want it. And Cassie starts thinking about it. Her inner self starts talking to her, and she gives in. She takes the extra martini and drinks it. After leaving Grace's, the first place she heads is to a convenience store to get more alcohol, but she ends up running into a familiar face, Jenny. They both do the pretty awkward, hey, what are you doing here? Because both of them are holding alcohol, both of them being members of AA. Jenny blames it all on her boyfriend, saying that he's still hung up on his ex. And Cassie, trying to divert attention to the fact that she's also standing in front of the liquor, starts telling Jenny that it's coming off a little creepy. She's starting to feel like she's stalking her. She's not going to do her podcast, no matter how much she wants her to. All the while, Cassie is slurring her words because she's already drunk. Cassie waits for Jenny to leave and then buys 2 bottles of vodka and downs one right away. By the time she gets back to her place, she is trashed. She finds a note from Marco saying that he'll stop by later to pick up his things, but in her drunken rage, she decides to speed that process up, grabs all of his stuff, and throws it in a bag. She realizes that she needs somebody to help her, so she ends up calling Dot. But Dot doesn't answer. Not the first time, or the second time, or the third time. And by the 4th time Cassie calls, she's belligerent. One of the reasons that Dot might not have answered is because Dot thinks that the Echo Park murders might have been an inside job. She goes and talks to Benjamin about it, but Benjamin says that he's still circling for leads, and he's got a few ideas, but he's not ready to reveal them yet. Dot, though, is definitely suspicious, and she asks one of her assistants to pull all the communication between Benjamin and Cassie. With Dot not answering, Cassie calls her other CIA friend, Shane. She doesn't initially get Shane, though. She gets Justin, Shane's boyfriend, who she hasn't met. and Cassie inadvertently reveals to Justin that Shane works for the CIA. So when Shane does hop on the phone, he's not really in a great mood because Justin had no idea and Shane wanted to keep it that way. He gets so angry that he ends up hanging up on her because he can't help her at the moment. Cassie goes into a rage, grabbing that bear that Davey gave her and driving it all the way to the beach, where she ends up chucking it into the ocean. She also has a good conversation with her inner self. Cassie starts blaming her inner self for making her throw away her sobriety after a year, and her inner self reminds her, "You weren't sober for a year. The longest you made it was 6 months." The realization of this upsets Cassie so much that she calls the only person she can truly count on Brenda. And Brenda understands what Cassie's going through. She understands falling off the wagon and wanting to be that fun, alcoholic self. Brenda isn't there to chastise Cassie for her decisions. She's there to be a friend. Cassie ends up revealing to Brenda that she didn't have a year. She was lying the entire time. The most she had was 6 months. But when she showed up in LA, she wanted the 6 months to count. So she just lied about it. Cassie makes mention of the fact that she was doing so well, but Brenda says, "No, you weren't. You were lying to yourself and everybody." And when Cassie says, "Great, now I'm back at square one," Brenda says, "Cassie, you never left square one. You built your recovery on a house of cards and it crumbled. That's what happens." She then gives Cassie a hug. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.